Hello, friends. This is Brian Leslie Father here. Welcome back to Family Secrets. We're glad you're here with us again today. This is the third course in many courses to come.
Yeah.
How many courses does it take to live a life? That's the thing. And so we're going to have a lot more content and information for you. But we already got you through. I want to get married. Now we went to I'm married. Now what? So now we're going to talk to you about the beginning of your marriage. And I'm married. We're moving forward. So today is the secret to growing your marriage, and the secret to growing your marriage means you keep growing it from day one. So we want to go back and look at a couple things. The first thing I want to look back at is maturing. We're going to talk about some strengths and weaknesses and whatever else we fill in as we go through the process. We really haven't scripted all this, if you hadn't noticed, because here's the thing: life isn't scripted. And so we're here giving you a genuine and authentic experiences and encounters with what we've lived and what we've done and what we've put into play because of what God showed us to do and how He taught us to be as a family, as a husband and wife and as parents. So you're not going to get a lot of scripted stuff from us. We've got outlines and notes and things of that nature. But your secret to growing a marriage is learning how to be flexible, learning to hear the voice of God day by day.
Yes.
We will get. It's not coming today, but we will be talking to you about learning daily methods of operation in growing your marriage. But we're going to kind of hint on that today, and we're going to touch base on some of that. So here we go. We're going to start with maturing, and so we're going to talk about personal growth. You want to lead out with that today?
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked in the past about maturing in your skills and in your spiritual life, and maybe even maturing in your in your what you do in your occupation.
Yeah.
And so we want to just check in with you, make sure that you are continuing to grow. Personal growth is a thing that never should stop. You should always be working on yourself, bettering yourself. So you can do that in all the different areas of life. You can learn how to be better emotionally. You can learn how to be better spiritually. You can learn how to be better even in your physical life. Are you staying disciplined in how you're living your life? So personal growth is a big thing. You need to always be reading. Reading is like a major thing you're going to hear from us. Reading is how you get ahead in all the areas of life. You have to be a reader. So find a way that reading works for you. If it's on a tablet, if it's in a book, if it's in a magazine where it's shorter, little clips of things, if it's on blogs, you can read in the Bible, you can read in another one? I don't know. You can read anywhere, but read. Just read. We need you to read.
And let me say this. If you don't like to read or you can't read or you don't read well, there are so many resources today with websites and blogs and Sherry mentioned and different things that even the Bible on the Bible app, it'll read to you. It will read itself to you. And so you have a lot of places that you can hear things read to you, audiobooks, all sorts of different ways to there's ways to read without actually reading. We recommend you actually read it. Work kind of books in your hand, flip the pages, or on the tablet or on the phone or whatever.
Make notes as you go. Whole thing.
And we're all of that. But the personal growth is so important. You should be on at least one or two books that you're reading and going through. I don't care if it's an audio book or a physical book, and already be thinking about the next one and looking for the next one for you to go through. I typically have 2 to 3 going at any given moment, and they vary. I typically like to do a ministry book, a personal growth book, and then a book for fun. And I don't always do the book for fun because I'm almost too serious at times. But have things to help yourself grow personally, and do that. And then to take it to the next level, in our notes it says grow as a couple. And so we want to create habits and interactions that work together as you're growing. Let's take the first one where we talked about this reading. You may read a book together. You may do devotional together. You may read something that interests both of you. And it doesn't have to be super spiritual or super personal growth thing. It could be, hey, I want to read about eagles, or I want to read about cooking gourmet meals, or you can pick something, but it's something that you're doing together. And so you're growing together.
Exactly. Yeah. You might want to grow your skills, just your skills at organization. So
Yeah.
sometimes people are just not organized. So if you need help in that area, there's plenty of resources out there for getting organized, getting your stuff in order, and
Yeah.
that always helps life. When we're disorganized, it's distracting. So you need to have some organization. If you haven't improved those cooking skills yet, you can work on those. If you're spiritually still growing and hungry, keep reading the Word. Keep getting new books that encourage you. I would say be careful where your sources are that you're reading from,
Yeah.
but as long as they're lining up with what the Word of God says, which is, remember, our plumb line, we want to be lined up with the Word of God no matter what we're doing. As long as it does that, then those are good resources for you to keep reading and growing in.
Yeah. And then the next thing I want to talk to you about is, if you haven't noticed, you and your spouse are not the same. You're not the same.
Right.
And so in personal growth, it's not trying to become one individual. It's trying to become one in unity, one in spirit,
Yes.
one in goals and aims and direction. It's not, I'm never going to be Leslie, and Leslie's never going to be me, thank God.
God made us different,
Yeah, absolutely.
but He made us to work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the goal is to become in sync with one
Yes.
another, so that I can pretty much tell you what He's going to say and where He's going to go and what He's going to do, because I just know Him, and He knows me the same way. He'll be able to just peg right on what I'm going to do next, and that comes from growing together and getting used to one another. And so your habits, even, like, if you can't coexist in a bathroom together in the morning, you've got problems. You got to start working on those habits and getting them synced together. We have existed in a one sink bathroom most of our married life, and they were usually small bathrooms. So, but we know how to work around each other. We know what each other will do and when they'll do it, and we've got it down. But that's something you have to work on individually to figure out, how does it work for you? How are your habits functioning together? Are you a night owl? Are you an early bird? And is your spouse the opposite? Because that's kind of how we started. We've kind of come back to the middle maybe now, both of us. But we started off very different, and then we had to learn how to work those habits back together.
Yeah. And one of the things that in your personal growth or your marriage growth, let's put it that way, your marriage growth, is husbands and wives, you need to study each other. And you have a lifetime to do that. My wife still surprises me. She says, I can tell you everything she's going to do. It's really not true. I have an inclination based on past experiences, and so I can give an educated guess on what she's thinking or going to do. But I'm going to say there's still times when she does something and I'm just shaking my head going, where did that come from and why did she do that? It's not negative. It's just like, I still have more to learn about my wife, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so it's learning and growing together and study each other. I know by certain faces what she's thinking. I know certain body language that, I'm not coming into the room right now because that body language says someone's in trouble and I don't want it to be me. So there's different things that you learn as you personally grow. You're personally growing, but you're personally growing together as a couple. But to go back to the differences of things, in our notes today, we have a couple of instances that we talked about when we first got married, because we were so opposite. When we got married, I was the person that I did not know how to say no. I didn't know how to say no because I was a people pleaser. I cared what people thought. I cared if I just cared about what they thought about me. Let's put it that way. And so if someone called, hey Brian, can you do blah blah blah, or hey Brian, can you be at sure. So I would say yes to everybody and everything, which ended up ticking people off because I had scheduled myself 6 places at one moment.
Right.
You can't do that.
Possibly be in all those places.
No, it's impossible. So I had to learn how to say no and be more disciplined. And that's something that she brought to the table. Leslie was a discipline every 15, 30 hour, I don't know how.
I was scheduled.
Very scheduled. I mean, blocked out, scheduled. And that wasn't bad. It was just completely the opposite of me.
Right. Yeah.
I had no schedule.
Right.
None. I mean, I knew I had to be at work at a certain time. I was going to get off at a certain time.
That was it.
But beyond that, There was no schedule. So you're lucky to figure out what I'm doing any given day.
Right.
I was lucky to figure out what I was doing any given day. So I had to learn, and I learned it from Leslie, how to schedule. So now today, fast forward 30 years, I am a schedule person. I schedule my time, I schedule my effort, I schedule when we do videos like this, I schedule everything that I do, and I know my schedule typically is pretty reasonably a week in advance.
Right.
Not always, because I leave room for interruptions. That's a whole other lesson. But I leave room for interruptions or things to come in and get in the way. But typically, I know what I'm going to do, where I'm going to be. I wouldn't be that way if I hadn't married Leslie. I probably would have still been ticking people off and going to 8 places in the same moment. So you don't want to do that. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah. On the flip side of that, I was so scheduled that he helped me to learn how to relax and be flexible. He would come home from work and he'd say, "Come on, we're going," and I'd say, "Where are we going?" And he'd say, "Just come on, just enjoy the ride." This was his mantra to me constantly: "Enjoy the ride, just enjoy the ride." And so he'd take me out for a ride, and it took me forever to be able to just relax and calm down, because I didn't know where we were going and I wasn't in control of where we were going. And so it was but he was trying to help me to flex. He was trying to help me to relax. Yeah. And so sometimes the ride ended up in just a pretty drive in the country. Sometimes it ended up with ice cream somewhere. Sometimes it ended up, just any place that he could think to go. But he was just trying to get me to flex with him. And so he pulled me that direction, where now he says, "Come on, let's go." I'm all right. I'm all up in it. That's fine. We can go, and I can enjoy the ride, and I don't worry about where we're going. Sometimes I can figure it out, and sometimes I can't, and that's all right with me. But he had to pull me that direction to help me relax. Yeah. And so that was a good thing that he did, and both of our strengths pulled the other's weaknesses back into equilibrium, is what we were trying to establish, I think. The middle, and being balanced in the middle. Yeah. He was a bachelor, walk in the door, drop his clothes as he went, kind of guy, just kind of all over the place. Wasn't thrilled about laundry, he told you earlier, and he wasn't thrilled about dishes either. So I had to come in and kind of just help him to say, okay, there's a place for everything, and everything should be in its place, is kind of my thing.
That's her mantra. And
he doesn't necessarily hit that perfectly all the time, but he did pull it into where we were more in middle ground, and so we could both be happy then, because we weren't irritating the other one totally. I mean, we were pretty balanced about it, so that was always a good thing.
Yeah, good. Why don't you go ahead and you mentioned strengths and weaknesses. Why don't you go ahead and let's just step into that for a moment or two and talk about how the strengths and weaknesses play in to your growth as a couple and as individuals, because each of you, we've talked about this in previous videos in the last course that we had, that you bring to the table strengths, but you also bring to the table weaknesses. And so part of developing and part of growing and maturing and growing your marriage is learning how to address both.
Yes.
Your strengths and your weaknesses, and doing it without getting offended at one another. So I'm just going to let her take the lead. I kind of jumped in there, but I'm going to let her take the lead and run with that a little bit and talk to you about how to balance out, how to mature your strengths in your marriages, your strengths and weaknesses in your marriage.
Yeah. Okay. So you have to kind of know who you are. Yeah. And so one of the first things that makes me think of is when we were first married, I am really probably the better bookkeeper as far as details, but I'm not the better at paying bills, because paying the bills was a stressful thing for me, because our budget was tight. There wasn't a lot of give in our budget, especially early on. And so for me to be the bookkeeper of paying bills was just like an emotional mess by the time we were done. And finally he's like, okay, so we got to balance this out. Right. And so he took over paying the bills, not because he's the better bookkeeper, but because he could handle the stress better than I could handle the stress. I had to grow and mature in that so that I wasn't overwhelmed all the time. And so he took over where I was weak, and he was able to use his strengths, and then he just let me file the stuff away. Yeah. So my detail was to just stick it in the file at the end. And so that kind of worked better for us. You have to kind of know who you are. And it may be an opposite thing with your couple, with your marriage, but just know who's better at what, and that way you can
Absolutely.
divide the duties up, and everybody can feel secure and feel like everything's getting done, and so that's a good thing. Another thing that we learned emotionally with me was not to push me too far, because there's a very fine line between laughing and then bawling at him and crying at him. And he used to just, he's a humor guy, and he loves me. He loves to make jokes.
You have to
And-
understand, I was raised in a home where we played what we called the dozens. So we joked continuously,
Yeah.
and we weren't nice about it.
No.
We were picking and playing, and it wasn't mean spirited, but it can come off as mean.
Yeah.
And that's how I grew up. So that was an area of my life that was both a strength. I was really good at it.
Yeah.
But
it was a weakness
because she didn't like that.
It wasn't good for me. And so he could push me, and I would be laughing, but then he'd just push one too far, and I'd be in tears. And he's like, "What did I do? I don't know what I did." And so we had to balance that
Yeah.
out. Now, one time he pushed so far that I had a pudding cup in my hand, and I just looked at him and stuck it right on his nose, because I was so frustrated with him. I didn't know what to do. And so we had to learn how to balance that, so that he was having fun, but so was I. And so it needed to be the balance of
Yeah, and
that.
I hadn't grown yet, because when she put it on my nose, I laughed, which made it even madder. She left the room because I found it funny that she got that mad.
It wasn't fun.
Now I wouldn't do that, but I would come close maybe, but I wouldn't do it because I still Henri and pick. And so you have to learn balances, and that's part of that.
Sure.
So you have to learn each other's emotions. You have to learn
Exactly.
when to talk, when not to talk, when to give
Yeah.
each other space,
Mhm.
and learn who's the more emotionally tough, more mentally tough
Right.
than the other one, and
Mhm.
allow that. It's okay. I've never expected Leslie to be me, and she's never expected me to be her.
Mhm.
We have moments where we
Yeah.
have disagreement or
Mhm.
a challenge in that realm, because we look at things differently, because I'm a guy and she's a girl. We were
Right.
raised differently.
Mhm.
I say we was. I can see. I can't even talk. She would have said we were raised differently, and she would be correct and I would be wrong. But anyway, that's just another difference. But we have fun. We have
Yeah.
to learn all those things about each other,
Yeah.
and become better at those things.
I
What
also
else?
think there's spiritual strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses. So a lot of times we were fairly even with our faith
Yeah.
when we got married, but there were times and seasons. So sometimes I was just totally not in the faith game. I was struggling. I was disappointed. I was frustrated. My emotions in the beginning of our marriage ran a lot of who I was. And I had to learn how to get on top of those emotions and let my faith rule.
Mhm.
And so he would be strong faith-wise, and he would pray, and he would encourage me. And then we would have a season where it flipped the other way, and I would be really strong. I'd be really seeking the Lord, and
Yeah.
I'd be reading in the Word, and I'd be really strong with what we needed. And he would be like ho-humming at me, and yeah, whatever. And so I was able to pick up that slack. And so that's
Yeah.
part of strengths and weaknesses too, is just being able to pick up the slack from the other one
Mhm.
and keep the whole moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm a pastor, right? So you would think that being a pastor, most people assume some things about pastors. You think that I would be the more prone to pray. It's not true. My wife is more prone to pray, and she prays much more effectively and much better than I do. I'm glad she's on my team, because I pray, and what I do though is I study a lot, I read a lot, I listen a lot. I get quiet and just meditate, but I don't really pray in the stereotypical way of people praying. Now she's walking around the house all day praying. She's just constantly in a prayer mode, and I'm just not that person. So it doesn't make either of us more or less spiritual.
No.
It's just the different way that we see, listen, and hear from
Yeah.
God. And so you have to give yourselves, again, the strength and the weakness, again, the difference on how to accommodate each other,
Yeah.
even spiritually,
Yeah.
in that sense.
And learn how to pull both of those things together,
Yeah.
so that you're a strong force, because you use both sides of it
Yeah.
and bring it together in something really powerful.
Yeah, because remember when we first started this whole thing, we talked about Ephesians 5:32, and that the secret of marriage is the secret to the kingdom.
Yeah.
And here's the biggest secret. You ready? If you're ready for a note, if you're a note taker and you want a profound statement, here it comes.
Mm-hmm.
If you two can be in unity, if you two can walk together in spite of your differences, beside your differences, your strengths, your weaknesses, if you can come to a place that you walk unified, you become a powerhouse
Right.
in God's kingdom. The
Right.
biggest secret about marriage in God's kingdom
Mhm.
is really the secret of unity. It's the secret of working together and being one in that sense. God put you together to be one, not just for you to propagate and raise up another generation. That's part of it. The way He put you together to be one is to learn how to be in agreement,
Yeah.
how to be in unity, and how to affect your world.
Right.
That's really a really, really big
Right.
deal, right?
Yes, yes. I think one of the other ways that people have strengths and weaknesses are in the area of whether you're a big picture person
Yeah.
or whether you're a details person. I have children who are each, and I have to learn how to accommodate. And Brian tends to be the big picture person. He can see out far and he can see the wide big picture. I tend to be the one who's picking at the small things in front of me because I'm detail oriented. Now, neither thing is wrong, and usually both things are needed. He can see the vision for our family. He sees the focus that we need because he's got the big picture in his mind. And he shares the big picture with me and helps me to see the big picture. And then I will come along and say, okay, so if we're going to get to that big picture, we need to focus on these little details right here so that we can get these accomplished, which gets us to the big picture.
Yeah.
So it works, we work together that way. If you have two people who are detail oriented or you have two people who are big picture oriented, then you might need to hone some skills in one or the other things so that you can get better at being able to do both. It takes both to be successful in life and successful in marriage.
Yeah. So we hope that this unit has encouraged you and brought value to you. Hope you realize that you're not alone in the boat. That you're, as a couple, are like, I would say almost 100% of other couples that, we have differences.
Yeah.
We have different strengths and weaknesses. We have different ways to approach things and do things. You know, what happened to you? Because beforehand, we agreed on everything when we were, courting and dating and getting ready. That's because that wasn't real. That was you guys, especially, putting on a show to get her to become your spouse. And now you have to be genuine and authentic and real. And so we want to encourage you with that. We'll put some resources in this course for you to help with each of the lessons that the units that we've brought to you. And we hope that you can realize that your strengths, your weaknesses, and your differences shouldn't be your division.
Right.
It shouldn't be where you lose your unity, but rather rally around them, help each other out, and figure out a way to make those differences become your strengths.
Yes.
So with that said, we are glad you're here, and we will see you in the next unit as we keep going on the secret to growing your marriage. Love talking to you. We hope that you are getting a great amount of value out of this.
Yeah.
We will talk to you in the next unit. Have a good day.